Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to trace the hidden connections that are buried inside a single day's news and piece together a story that literally spans the entire globe.
I know, it sounds like the beginning of a really strange joke, right? But the answer actually reveals a powerful truth about our world. Nothing happens in isolation. Every single event creates a ripple. Stick with me and we'll follow those ripples together.
Our goal here is to uncover the invisible threads, the lines of cause and effect that link these seemingly random events. Our journey begins not with a bang, but with a bird's cry.
We're going to start in the forests of West and Central Africa, with our smallest and maybe our most vulnerable subject.
So, meet the African gray parrot. These birds are just brilliant. They're famous for their incredible ability to mimic human speech and can live for up to 50 years. But that same popularity has a really dark side. It drives a massive illegal wildlife trade that has pushed them right onto the endangered list. So you see, the story of this one species is a crystal clear warning. Its struggle for survival is a direct result of human demand happening half a world away. It is a perfect, textbook example of action and consequence.
Okay, so from the plight of a single species, we're now going to scale up and see how these exact same forces of cause and effect play out within an entire nation. Our next stop is India, where a very similar tension is constantly at play.
Now, what's really interesting here is this constant push and pull. On one side, you have this profound, deep-seated duty to protect ancient, sacred heritage. And on the other, you have the undeniable need for economic growth, which requires the very raw materials that heritage is built on.
On the past side of that scale, you have something like the Brihadeeswarar Temple. This is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, completed over 1,000 years ago, with a main tower that stands an incredible 66 meters tall.
And get this, the massive stone at the very top, the kumbum, it's a single block of granite that weighs 80 tons. Just try to imagine the engineering genius and the vision it took to lift that into place way back in the year 1010.
And now, here's the future side of the equation. Limestone. It may not look as grand as a temple, but this rock is the absolute essential ingredient for cement, for steel, for modern agriculture. And just recently, Jammu and Kashmir held its first ever auction of limestone blocks, a clear, deliberate move toward building that future.
This conflict, this tension between heritage and progress, it creates real-world consequences. In Hyderabad, the Hussain Sagar Lake, which was built way back in 1562, is now literally choking on the pollution generated by the modern city that grew up around it. But there is hope, and it's found in science. The solution being used is called bioremediation. It's a fascinating process, really, where microorganisms are introduced to literally eat the pollution. It's nature, guided by science, healing a wound that we humans made.
Understanding these relationships between what we do and what happens in the natural world is becoming absolutely critical. So here's a question for you. This is from a real civil services exam in India. You're in the countryside, and you see birds following cattle, snapping up all the insects they stir up. Which bird is it? Painted stork, common myna, or a black-necked crane?
The answer is the common myna. And here's the interesting part, the connection. Just like the African gray we started this whole journey with, the myna is also known for mimicking sounds. It's another small piece of the natural world, adapting to and thriving right alongside human activity.
So we've seen these forces of cause and effect working inside a nation. Now let's zoom out and see how they shape the critical relationships between nations.
This is a perfect example, a massive hydro project in Bhutan. It's a joint venture with India, funded by the World Bank, all to harness a river's power. Collaboration on this scale isn't just essential for creating clean energy. It's about strengthening regional stability and economic ties.
And that cooperation extends to security. Here we have AUSINDEX, a naval exercise between India and Australia. By practicing these incredibly complex drills together, ships like the INS Sayadrati and HMS Ballarat are strengthening a key strategic partnership in the Indo-Pacific, and that is a direct response to a changing geopolitical landscape.
From these big, major partnerships, we now turn to other points on the map where paths are crossing, in commerce, in crime, and sometimes in the quiet frontiers of science.
Take Georgia, a country at the strategic crossroads of Europe and Asia. Its location has always been key, and now it's building new economic bridges, strengthening ties with nations like India in industries like textiles. It's a great example of a smaller nation leveraging its geography to forge new global connections. But the same global interconnectedness that makes trade possible can also be exploited. On the same day, we see news of Operation Crystal Fortress, a joint operation that dismantled a huge transnational meth cartel, a pretty stark reminder that global pathways can be used for cooperation or for crime.
Okay, so from the complexities of human networks, let's just shift our perspective to something far older and way more resilient. Consider moss, one of the most ancient plants on Earth. A recent study proved something that sounds like it's straight out of science fiction. Certain types can actually survive the vacuum and radiation of long-duration space travel, an absolutely incredible story of survival against all odds.
So, the parrot, the temple, the worship, the moss. How does it all connect? What is the hidden story that ties all of this together?
The connection is interdependence. That's the key. Each one of these stories shows how one action has a ripple effect. The demand for a pet in one continent threatens a species in another. The need for modern materials puts pressure on ancient heritage. A nation's security is tied to its alliances. The point is, nothing happens in a vacuum.
So, the takeaway is this. These events aren't random dots on a map. They are all part of one big, complicated, and fascinating story of cause and effect. So the real question is, as you look at the world tomorrow, what connections will you see? Thanks for joining us.